Hello, everyone. It is wonderful to see a nice full gallery. Always good to have community here. Members of the public are advised that the meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the live stream recording will be made publicly available on YouTube and Council's website. I'll begin with an acknowledgement of country. Nillumbik Shire Council respectfully acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of the country on which Nillumbik is located, and we value the significance of the Wurundjeri people's history as essential to the unique character of the Shire. We pay tribute to all First Nations people living in Nillumbik, give respect to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all First Nations people. We respect the enduring strength of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and acknowledge the ongoing impacts of past trauma and injustices from European invasion, massacres and genocide committed against First Nations people. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people hold a deep and ongoing connection to this place. We value the distinctive place of our First Nations people in both Nillumbik and Australia's identity, from their cultural heritage and care of the land and waterways, to their ongoing contributions in many fields, including academia, agriculture, art, economics, law, sport, and politics. And now Councillor Eyre will read out the Good Governance Pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. As councillors, we are mindful of our civic responsibilities and obligations. We pledge to take them seriously and to carry them out with diligence and integrity. We know the decisions we take will affect the people and the environment of Nillumbik, now and in the future. We undertake, therefore, to make sound and principled decisions of lasting value, in a spirit of fairness and for the good of all. We also pledge to serve the needs and well-being of the community and the environment in an open and honest manner and to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'd now like to introduce Betsy Deer, Chair of the Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Nillumbik. The Nillumbik Baha'i community originated in the mid-1970s in what was then known as the Diamond Valley Shire. After amalgamation with an Eltham Shire, the Nillumbik Baha'i community formed in the mid-1980s. Over the years, the Nillumbik Baha'i community has been involved in numerous local activities. They have operated information stalls in the Diamond Creek Fair and the Eltham Town Fair, and held activities during Refugee Week and Reconciliation Week. They have run a devotional program for many years with Plenty Valley FM radio station and even won a Gomi Award, and also taught the Baha'i religious education for many years in local primary schools. Baha'is' aim is to celebrate diversity while living harmoniously in the human family. And so I'll now introduce Betsy. Thank you.
There we go.
Got it.
This evening, we're offering two prayers. One is a prayer for the concept of the council. The second one is for the individuals who make up that council, and we hope that they will be uplifting to you. O my God, O thou who endowest every just power and equitable dominion with abiding glory and everlasting might, with permanence and stability, with constancy and honor. Aid thou by thy heavenly grace every government that acteth justly towards its subjects, and every sovereign authority derived from thee, that shieldeth the poor and the weak under the banner of its protection. I beseech thee by thy divine grace and surpassing bounty, to aid this just government, the canopy of whose authority is spread over vast and mighty lands, and the evidences of whose justice are apparent in its prosperous and flourishing regions. Assist, O my God, its hosts. Raise aloft its ensigns. Bestow influence upon its word and utterance. Protect its lands. Increase its honor. Spread its fame, reveal its signs, and unfurl its banner through thine all-subduing power and thy resplendent might in the kingdom of creation. Thou verily aidest whomsoever thou willest, and thou verily art the Almighty, the most powerful. And the chair, actually, of the Nillumbik Baha'is for this year is going to read the prayer for the individual counselors.
O God, my God, these are thy feeble servants. They are thy loyal bondsmen and thy handmaidens, who have bowed themselves down before thine exalted utterance, and humbled themselves at thy threshold of light, and borne witness to thy oneness, through which the sun hath been made to shine in midday splendor. They have listened to the summons thou didst raise from out thy hidden realm, and with hearts quivering with love and rapture, they have responded to thy call. O Lord, shower upon them all the outpourings of thy mercy. Rain down upon them all the waters of thy grace. Make them to grow as beauteous plants in the garden of heaven, and from the full and brimming clouds of thy bestowals, and out of the deep pools of thine abounding grace, make them thou, this garden, to flower, and keep it ever green and lustrous, ever fresh and shimmering and fair. Thou art verily the Almighty, the exalted, the powerful, he who alone, in the heavens and on the earth, abideth unchanged. There is none other God save thee, the Lord of manifest tokens and signs. Well, thank you, both of you. We have no apologies tonight, but we do have one presentation to Tyler Habel from Swipers Gully Ward. So Councillor Eyre will present that for us.
Thank you, Mayor.
You can come up to the front, Tyler.
Tyler, come forward. So Tyler, who's in Swipers Gully Ward, I just had to mention that, receives $250 as a contribution for being selected to participate in the World BMX Championships. That's very exciting. Yep. Tyler has been a member of Park Orchard's BMX Club since he was 4 and is currently ranked number 2 in Victoria and number 10 in Australia. Again, that's pretty amazing. Yeah. Tyler was previously selected to go to Belgium with the Australian team when he was only 8 years old. The BMX Nationals in Launceston last year was the first chance Tyler could compete in a national competition since the COVID-19 pandemic commenced in 2020. Tyler is currently in Year 7 at Eltham High School, and we wish you all the very best for your future sporting pursuits. Congratulations.
Thank you. Hello, Nillumbik councillors and guests. Thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Tyler, and as a sport, I do BMX, which stands for Bicycle Motocross. In the past, I've gone 10th in Australia and 6th in the Oceania. Because of those results, I've been invited to represent Australia in Glasgow, Scotland. With the help of you, my coaches and parents, I believe I could achieve the goal I've been working on for almost 10 years, which is to get in the top 8 of the world. Thank you for having me.
I think the CEO is particularly excited you'll be competing in his homeland. Congratulations, Tyler. So moving on, the next item is the confirmation of the minutes. So I'll look for a mover.
Happy to move
Councillor
that,
Payne.
Mayor, to move the minutes that Council 1 confirms the minutes of the council meeting and confidential council meeting held on Tuesday 27th of June 2023 as per attachments 1 and 2. And 2 resolves that the confidential council meeting minutes as per attachment 2 remains confidential in accordance with section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre? Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Any disclosures of conflicts of interest, councillors? There are no conflicts of interest. We have no petitions. We do have a good number of questions from the gallery, which is always nice to see. The first question is from David Smith. Is David in the audience tonight? Can't see him. So we will provide him with a written answer to his questions. The next question is from Kelvin Granger and Dean Hurlston on behalf of Council Watch. Kelvin or Dean in the room tonight? All right. Once again, we will provide a written response. The next question is from Anthony Miller. Is Anthony Miller in the room? Okay, once again, we'll provide a written response. We're whizzing through these. The next question is from Darren Zdravko-Zilic. Is Darren in the room? Darren is in the room. Welcome, Darren. Question 1. Is the Lord's Prayer still held prior to council meetings? And the response is, the decision of council to endorse the new governance rule meeting procedure at the last council meeting, which removed the prayer from the order of business, is subject to a notice of rescission listed for consideration on tonight's council meeting. Once a notice of motion to rescind a resolution has been received, no action could be taken to implement the resolution. That means that the prayer will remain on the agenda until council decides on the rescission motion. Question 2. In the short term, what is Nillumbik Council doing about the housing crisis across our region? And the response is, Council has partnered with other councils across the region and is advocating to government to review housing growth direction across Melbourne, for improved delivery mechanisms for the creation of new social and affordable housing, and for planning reform to reduce barriers in growth area councils to facilitate infill growth and greenfield development. There's no opportunity to add to questions, but by all means feel free to call or email any of us councillors whenever you wish, and we'll be happy to converse more with you. The next question is from Paul Ellis. Is Paul Ellis in the room? Okay, we will move on, but once again, Paul will be provided with a response. Sharon Murphy. Is Sharon Murphy in the room? Welcome, Sharon. In relation to item 13, NOM 001/23, at the June council meeting, some councillors ignored the council officer's recommendation based on reasonable evidence to remove the prayer from the agenda of future council meetings. This is despite the fact that 51% of Nillumbik residents indicated in the latest census that they are not associated with any religion. Therefore, why does council think it necessary to include a prayer at every meeting when the councillor oath and good governance pledge already provide clear directions for councillors to carry out their civic responsibilities with diligence and integrity, make sound decisions in a spirit of fairness, and serve the needs and well-being of their community? And the response is, the decision of council to endorse the new governance rule meeting procedure at the last council meeting, which removed the prayer from the order of business, is subject to a notice of rescission listed for consideration on tonight's council meeting. Council is aware that based on the latest census data from 2021, the predominant religious affiliation in Nillumbik Shire was Western Roman Catholic, comprising 21.8% of the population. Meanwhile, nearly half of residents, totaling 49.9%, identified as having no religious affiliation, and 3.9% chose not to disclose their religious preference. As this matter is listed on the agenda tonight for council consideration, we are unable to preempt the decision of council. We have a question from Michael Dove. Is Michael's right here? Welcome, Michael. In relation to item 13, NOM 001/23, at Boroondara City Council, I am aware that a legal challenge will definitely occur if a prayer continues to be included in the council meeting agenda. The case will argue that it contravenes sections of the Local Government Act 2020 and the Victorian Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act 2006. The case centres around the proposition that freedom of information is important, but it does not trump freedom from religion in the conduct of public government. Assuming Boroondara does not acquiesce and accept the legal case, it appears highly probable that the prayer will be found to be illegal in the courts. This will have significant repercussions for the minority of councils in Victoria that persist with this anachronistic and divisive practice. Has Council considered the potential of a legal challenge that could result in a significant financial cost for Council and Nillumbik ratepayers with associated adverse media coverage and reputational risk? And the response is, the assertion made regarding the unlawfulness of including the prayer under the Victorian Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act and the Local Government Act has not undergone legal scrutiny in a court of law. Currently, there is no existing case law or precedent in Australia that indicates the inclusion of the prayer is considered unlawful. Council will consider and take into account as circumstances evolve and new information or legal perspectives emerge. As this matter is listed on the agenda for Council consideration tonight, we are unable to preempt the decision of Council. The next question is from Marilyn Klein, who is with us tonight. Welcome, Marilyn. Question 1. Why did Council, who states it inclusive and represents the community, decide to remove the prayer from Council meetings without consultation with the faith community in Nillumbik? And question 2. Given that councillors are voted on to Council to represent the public and over 50% of the population believe there is a God, what was the basis for removing the prayer from the Council meetings? And we have a joint response to both of those questions, which is as follows. The decision of Council to endorse the new governance rule meeting procedure at the last Council meeting, which removed the prayer from the order of business, is subject to a notice of rescission listed for consideration on tonight's Council meeting. Prior to making the decision, Council undertook a process of community engagement. This public engagement via Council's Participate Nillumbik platform commenced on the 1st of March and concluded on the 30th of March 2023. Based on the latest census data from 2021, the predominant religious affiliation in Nillumbik Shire was Western Roman Catholic, comprising of 21.8% of the population. Meanwhile, nearly half of the residents, totaling 49.9%, identified as having no religious affiliation, and 3.9% chose not to disclose their religious preference. As this matter is listed on the agenda for tonight for Council consideration, we are unable to preempt the decision of Council. And our final question is from Nada Cunningham. Is Nada in the room? Welcome, Nada. I would like to know why, given current discussions on neighbourhood character and biodiversity, Number 43, Antoinette Boulevard, Eltham, has been able to flout the bush residential quality and planning regulations of Antoinette Boulevard by painting the iconic mud brick house white and gradually removing the garden to set up a large concrete parking lot, presumably for a business given the number of cars present every day. And the response is, Council is aware of the activity that has recently taken place at 43 Antoinette Boulevard, Eltham, and have an ongoing planning investigation underway. While the specifics cannot be provided, a thorough and comprehensive investigation is currently active and appropriate enforcement action is occurring. So that's a response to that question. That's all the questions we have for tonight, a healthy number of questions, which is always good to see. And the next item is reports of advisory committees. So I will look for somebody to move the minutes of the advisory committee meetings.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that the Council notes the minutes of the Advisory Committee meetings reported 25 July 23.
Thank you, Councillor Egan.
Sorry.
I think you read the possibly the attachment, not the motion. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I misheard the final part of that. Got confused. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Egan.
Nothing much to say here. It's just a normal part of business in meeting with our advisory committees.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. Yes, the Youth Council meeting I attended, it's a fabulous group of young people within the Shire who are being the voice of young people to be able to provide information back to Council. There were a couple of highlights. One of the Youth Council, and this is in the minutes for those who would like to read them, one of our council members was a previous youth council mayor, and Fika Vanderkamp explained to the group her acceptance into Harvard following her completion of high school, and was able to present to the group on how that came about and the role that being involved in the youth council had in helping her and the various other aspects of her great application. So that was fabulous for the youth to see the progression of what can come out of becoming active in the community. The other point that I'd like to mention was just the excitement of the Youth Council in seeing the reality of the Youth Hub coming forward, knowing that we've received $300,000 from the state government to be able to put a youth hub together, and that we've got the space down at Diamond Creek set aside. So they've been very excited as one of the main goals in their term being realised. So that's a great thing for council to know, that by putting this youth voice together and youth having a say of what they want to see in the Shire, they're able to actually start delivering back to the community on the things that they're wanting to do. And finally, I'd like to give a shout out to two of the youth council members who gave public addresses in the community. Youth Mayor Kira Imbriano spoke at the Nillumbik Reconciliation 25-year anniversary event, and another youth councillor, Scarlett Magnini, she presented at the council's reconciliation flag raising event. So, you know, these young people are doing themselves proud, and they're doing our Shire proud. So I'd just like to encourage people to put their hand up for the Youth Council when it becomes available. And there's a few hours left for people to give their thoughts on the Youth Hub. The community engagement closes at 11:59 p.m. tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the Climate Action Plan Year 1 Annual Performance Report and Year 2 Implementation Plan, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move that, Mayor Ramtran. Yes, the recommendation that Council 1 receives and notes the Nillumbik Climate Action Plan 2022-2023 Annual Performance Report as per Attachments 1 and 2. And 2, endorses the Climate Action Plan Year 2 Implementation Plan 2023-24 as per Attachment 3.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Payne.
Don't have much to say to this except that having declared a climate emergency last year, we've adopted a climate action plan, and that has meant that climate action is being worked into the business as usual and day-to-day activities of council. We've got key focus areas where climate action communications plans and training have been carried out. Local groups formed the Climate Action Alliance. We're having climate action coffee and chats. It is something that is actually spreading out through the community, and particularly focus area 7, achieving zero waste and circular economy. We are working our way through the many engineering and behavioural changes required to keep us getting to net zero. And it will be a bumpy road, but most councils and most communities are going through the same thing. So I can recommend and thank the officers for the work that they've done.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. Just very briefly, just to say that this is a really important action of council. I'm very pleased, and other members of I can't speak on behalf of the other members of council, but just to say that as a council, putting this forward has been one of the highlights for me in the term, and having the community put all of their input in to help us work out where we're going to go forward, and coming up with net zero targets of 2030 by a net zero by 2030 for the council emissions, and net zero by 2035 for the community. We're really trying to work on how we can do this, and there are little things that come up along the way that weren't planned at the beginning, and one of those that's exciting is in the report it's talks about focus area 2, having a climate resilient and adaptive and safe community. And one of the implementation plans is looking at Edendale Farm becoming a real climate action hub for our community. So there was engagement where we went out to the community for their feedback, and there was an overwhelmingly positive response from the community about having Edendale set up as a place to be able to help us all as individuals do more in understanding how we can have a role to play in changing the effects of climate change. So that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? Might try that one more time. Those in favour? Wonderful. And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the Ryan's Reserve Rejuvenation Project, concept plan for community consultation, and I'll look for a motion. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that Council endorses the draft concept plans for the Ryan's Reserve Rejuvenation Project as per attachment 1 for the purposes of community consultation. Number 2, undertakes community consultation for the period 31st of July to 20 August 2023, inviting written submissions for the Ryan's Reserve Rejuvenation Project. And 3, considers public submissions at the planning and consultation meeting to be held on the 12th of September 2023.
Councillor Egan has indicated her intention to second. If you could do that with your microphone on, Councillor Egan. Just for the live stream.
Happy to second, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Councillor Egan, for your wonderful support this time. A bit of a history to this one. It was about 4 years ago, the last council, that we narrowly missed out on getting majority of council to support a much smaller in scope project to go forward to the state government for a Growing Suburbs Fund grant application. We didn't get the majority of council to support that grant application. Instead, council chose to submit a grant for a project that the community didn't want, and that I think was basketball court at Eltham Lower Park, or half basketball court at Eltham Lower Park. But the community really got behind this concept. 4 years ago, many people submitted to it. Vince from one of our larger Facebook groups in Diamond Creek Community Hub, I think it is. Vince Vagas, I'm not, how do you say it? Bagiolis. Yeah, anyway, Vince, as I know him, came and spoke, and he made lots of good points. I thought it would have got up at the time. It didn't, but it actually put it on the radar, and we've ended up with a much better application to the state government for Growing Suburbs funding. And we were successful late last year in getting nearly $1.2 million for this rejuvenation project. So where the park is, as it currently stands, it's at the bottom of a hill of a larger bushland reserve. If you looked on Google Maps, you'd see it's called the Diamond Creek Bushland Reserve. It's a 1.6 hectare bushland reserve with some open space down the bottom. It's bounded by Landvoss Drive, Broad Gully Road, Hillington Drive and Penton Court in Diamond Creek, right in the middle of suburbia, you could say. It's certainly Diamond Creek, as we know, home to over 11,000 residents, more than 3,000 families. When I got onto council 14 years ago now, certainly the need for toilets here was highlighted to me first and foremost, and it's something that the community has been asking for and wanting that whole time. A few years ago, I would have been happy just to get toilets, but this is much, much better. The project itself, the plans are fantastic. I think the staff have worked really, really well to get these plans as good as they are to go out to community consultation. They can be improved. I'm not sure they will be improved after the feedback we get from the community. But we're looking at new concrete paths, new fencing, timber post and rail fencing. We've got formal gravel tracks. We've got lots of open space. We've got a stage for outdoor performances, and hopefully even Christmas carols into the future. We've got new soccer goals. We've got new shelters, 3 new 5x5 metre shelters, a new picnic table, and all access, which are all accessed via concrete slab. New barbecue with tap on the side, concrete slab with solar lighting for passive security at night. One west of play space with benches for informal hangout. The existing shelter there remains. We're getting a new toilet block. There aren't any toilets on site at all, so we're getting toilets, which is fantastic for families in the area. There's a basketball hoop on site that's being retained. We're getting a new exercise area, such as a space aerobic and strength builder. We're getting, the basket swing is being retained. We're getting more swings. We're getting a quieter gathering spaces for sensory play, an all-access carousel, large play structure, rock edging, picnic tables, numerous seating benches, drinking fountain, rubbish bins, bike racks, rain gardens, path network. It's all hopefully going to fit in within the broader context of the Bushland Reserve, so it'll be themed along those lines. It'll be sympathetic to the Bushland Reserve and hopefully over time help to highlight that Bushland Reserve and perhaps I'm very keen to get that Bushland Reserve identified in our biodiversity strategy that officers are working on at the moment. We want to make this Bushland Reserve something that the whole of Nillumbik can be proud of, and not just think about the environment in the rural parts of Nillumbik, but also in the urban parts. You know, it's going to contribute significantly to our urban tree canopy as it is, but it'll be improved over time. So look, it's a really exciting project. Probably right up there with the Diamond Creek Regional Play Space. That was also money we got from the state government with no contribution from council. So this shouldn't be a difficult one for council to support, given that money's effectively already in the bank. $1.191 million from the state government. We have to acknowledge that and other great stuff that we've got out of the Growing Suburbs Fund. So yeah, very, very exciting. I hope that, well, I know that council will support this one because it's certainly a good news story for one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan?
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'd just like to point out that sometimes it's better to wait and you get something that's much, much better the second time around. Patience is a virtue. Now I'd like to congratulate the staff for the work that they've done on this particular project. And I'm hoping Councillor Perkins will support me so that for the next ones, is coming a little bit more rural, so that would be great. But all in all, it's a fantastic effort by everybody here at Council, and especially as we're not putting in 1 single cent because we don't have any money. But apart from that small fact, it'll be really exciting to see the project start. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Oh, Councillor.
I was just going to just encourage community to actually give feedback to make sure it's exactly what they would like and how they would like to interact with it. Thanks.
Absolutely. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the Indigenous Voice to Parliament, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. The recommendation is that Council 1 adopts an organisational stance to support, in principle, the Uluru Statement from the Heart and the Indigenous Voice to Parliament. In doing so, Council recognises and acknowledges that the Indigenous Voice to Parliament is a complex socio-political issue with differences of opinion existing even amongst First Nations communities and individuals. Furthermore, Council recognises and acknowledges that adopting an organisational stance to support the Indigenous Voice to Parliament is a reflection of the collective opinion of councillors and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of individual councillors, council officers, volunteers or affiliates. The second part of this recommendation is that in recognising the complex socio-political nature of this issue, Council acts as an objective source of information regarding the referendum in providing education and resources to the broader Nillumbik community.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I will look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. A number of residents have contacted me asking, does Council have a position on the voice? I'm pleased that officers have prepared a report for Council to consider the Indigenous Voice to Parliament referendum and thank them for this. Nillumbik Shire Council has been widely acknowledged in the past for its leadership role in contributing to the process of Indigenous reconciliation. In 1997, under the themes of acknowledgement and celebration, Council initiated a historic regional partnership statement of apology and commitment to Aboriginal reconciliation with Banyule, Manningham and Whitehall City Councils. The year later, in 1998, Council launched its own comprehensive statements of apology and commitment to Aboriginal reconciliation at the Gayup celebration in Wingrove Park. Indigenous leaders and 1,000 Shire residents attended the landmark event. In 2008, Nillumbik Shire Council adopted a reconciliation charter which states Council's commitment to reconciliation with Indigenous Australians based on 12 principles. Some of these principles are: 1, Nillumbik Shire Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri as the traditional custodians of the land now known as the Shire of Nillumbik and values the significance of the Wurundjeri people's history as essential to the unique character of the Shire. 2, Nillumbik Shire Council recognises that residents of the Shire include Indigenous people from clans other than the Wurundjeri, and that these people are disconnected from their lands, and in many instances disconnection continues to impact on them. The third principle is we urge all levels of government, commerce and individuals to ensure Indigenous people enjoy equal social, health and economic conditions with all Australians. And point 9 was that Indigenous people have the right to share in all levels of decision making on matters which affect them and their communities. If we fast forward from 2008 to now, the Australian community has been invited through the Uluru Statement of the Heart to walk in a movement of the Australian people for a better future. Of the 250 elders present at the 2017 National Constitutional Convention, 94% of them signed their name to the Uluru Statement. The Uluru Statement, as most people will know, calls for 2 things: an Indigenous voice enshrined in the Constitution and a Makarrata Commission to oversee decisions and truth-telling between the Australian Government and First Nations people. So later in this year, Australians registered with the Australian Electoral Commission will be asked to vote either yes or no to the referendum question about establishing an Indigenous voice to Parliament. A number of councils, businesses and organisations have declared support. Among these, Banyule Council endorsed the Uluru Statement from the Heart in December of 2022. And Moonee Valley Council has unanimously resolved to support the introduction of an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice to Parliament in January of this year. Both have been engaging with their communities. We've heard from the Prime Minister and in our own officer report that an Indigenous voice to Parliament will be an advisory body to help inform the Australian Government on matters which affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Some might say there is no reason for Council to get involved in this referendum. I believe that we should, and Council should stand by our Reconciliation Charter principle. Principle 9, Indigenous people have the right to share in all levels of decision making on matters which affect them and their communities. And in Principle 3, we urge all levels of government, commerce and individuals to ensure Indigenous people enjoy equal social, health and economic conditions with all Australians. It is right that Nillumbik Council supports the Uluru Statement from the Heart and the Indigenous voice to Parliament. Council's role is to be a trusted source of information and to facilitate informed conversation locally amongst community leaders and residents in consultation with traditional owners and Aboriginal people. I will be voting yes for this constitutional change. In the past months, I've been listening and seeking out information. In May at a reconciliation event, Auntie Jill Gallagher shared that a voice will mean that people who have cared for this land for over 65,000 years will bring a voice to solutions. It's not just about Aboriginal people having a voice, it's about Australia having an Aboriginal voice. We heard at the recent Nillumbik reconciliation event that singer-songwriter Scott Darlow emphatically supports yes to the voice. Catholic Ladies College had a guest speaker sponsored by Council, Butchulla songman Fred Leone. He supported yes, and he shared stories about his great-grandfather surviving 3 massacres and of his grandfather being enslaved. In June at the National Assembly of Councils in Canberra, we heard from a panel of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander councillors calling for yes to the voice and for change. The call by Aboriginal people to be recognised in the Australian Constitution is not new. Like the 1967 referendum, where Aboriginal people were counted and given the same rights as other Australians, I feel that this referendum can unite an already divided Australia. I see this referendum being about truth, justice and equality, and I recognise all individuals have the right to vote as they see fit.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Perfect timing. Well done. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. So for me, this motion is saying that Council supports the Uluru Statement from the Heart and the referendum. We are saying that Council's role is to ensure objective information is made available to our community so that they can make their own informed, independent decision. As I see it, this motion is not trying to influence our community on how they should vote. However, if residents in our community require further details or information to help make a decision, that information will be available to you via 3 drop-in sessions. So there will be 1 at the Hurstbridge Hub and 2 at the Eltham Library, and there will be also information on Council's website, amongst other places. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Councillor Stockman.
Thanks, Mayor. Unfortunately, I can't support this motion, and if it was in the hands of Councillor Duffy, I probably would support it. I think you've got all the best intentions. But I do agree that many of our Indigenous people should be given better opportunities that will ultimately provide them, their families and their communities with better living conditions. Being on council has brought awareness to me of many atrocities that took place against Indigenous people that I didn't know about, and I would like to think that in this day and age, this country, there shouldn't be much disadvantage. About this motion, I am opposed to any stance, promotion or involvement by council of the voice in any form, as it may be politicised, add complication, make things divisive and sadly become simply token. Leave it to the feds to promote and have a stance. It's your rates, let's put them to work on the core areas where local government should be focusing.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Any other councillors? Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. Without me going through the motion, you've all heard it. It's about making us take a position. Whether one or two councils don't want to, that's what's going to be in the media. And I'm sorry, Natalie, and I know you're passionate and everything, but everything you spoke of here is not the issue. It's about the motion, what it says. It's only the second part, also Councillor Rea, that talks about education. The first, and it's not about the yes or no vote. And I agree with you on all of that. It's about us as a body taking a position on one side or the other in a future referendum. It's not what your council's here for, to tell you how to vote in the upcoming referendum at the end of the year, nor is council there to be the mouthpiece of the federal government for them. I asked a few weeks ago earlier on all the socials what people thought of council telling what they thought. And the stats were not 49% as in the prayer, but 99% against the motion. And this is even the Greenies and the trolls who always love to hate me didn't agree with this. They were all agreeing with me. The Mayor and others are happy to throw stats at me when the motion to stop the prayer before each meeting was voted on. Stay tuned. Only 50% or roughly 50% of any residents have any religion, therefore it should be thrown out. Well, here we have stats of 99% of close to 200 now that say this is none of our business and butt out, nor should it ever be. Nor should we tell any resident what or how to vote. Our only job here is to provide information which is covered off in point 2. And that's the end of it, even though it's very meagre and limited at present. Telling people how to vote or what council votes will only make those that are sitting on the fence say no, unfortunately. So that if that's what you want, just go ahead. This has nothing to do with me, the decision, and I'll be making that public everywhere. If individual councillors want to make their own statement of support for and against the voice, that's their choice. It's not mine. It's not Nillumbig's council's job to advocate either way. That's why we all get to vote later in the year to decide on the outcome of the referendum. You can't tell people what to do in this day and age of the new woke. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have it both ways. It's either about inclusion in the real sense of the word, or it's about telling you what to do. Make up your own mind. But I'm certainly not going to be a sheep tonight, and I won't be supporting this or any other federal motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? Councillor Payne.
Just a quick note to say that virtually every decision we make is a position of some description. C101, the rates freeze, declaration of a climate emergency, these are all positions. We're all on council because we have values, and the community expect us to live those values, ask us very intently when we run for council what our values are, and we display those values in matters of importance, and this one can't be much more important. So I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any other councillors? I'll speak briefly on that one before Councillor Duffy has her right of reply. I'm comfortable with the way that the motion's worded. I think it is really important to note that even though it seems the majority of Aboriginal people do support the voice to Parliament, there is still not a consensus within that community. And it's very difficult, and I think I'm personally finding it difficult, and I'm sure many other people are too, as someone who's not Aboriginal, to be voting on the rights of people who are. But that's the situation that we find ourselves in with that referendum, and it is a very difficult place to be. I do expect I'll vote yes, because that's what I'm hearing from most Aboriginal people, but I do want to listen to both sides. I'm not interested in the likes of Peter Dutton telling me why I should vote no, but if an Aboriginal person does come along with a genuine reason to do so, then I want to hear it. Because at the end of the day, we're putting a voice to Parliament into our constitution here. The whole purpose is to listen to Aboriginal people, and if we're not going to listen to Aboriginal people in the process of doing that, then it beats the whole point. So the... Thank you, Councillor Egan. So I'm comfortable with this motion in that it references the complex socio-political issue. It recognises and acknowledges that that not everybody is in agreement on this. And it moves us forward in a way of still providing an objective source of information. Even if council have passed this motion and supported in principle the voice, we're still providing objective information, and I think it's really important for us to do that, and we owe it to all Aboriginal people to do so. So I do support the motion, and I think this is a significant step for the council. Thank you, and I'll now hand over to Councillor Duffy for a right of reply. You've got 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. The word Waminjika is on our council signs. It's on many neighbouring signs for those people that are on Wurundjeri country. The word Waminjika we take as meaning welcome, but in its true definition, Mandy Nicholson explains that it means to come with purpose. So for me, coming to council was to come with purpose, with everything that I do to bring community at the heart of council, but also what could I do differently? And for me, the things that I can do differently to the normal roads, rates and rubbish is looking at meaning and meaning in reconciliation. So this is very personal to me. So the fact that the federal government is doing this at the same time that I'm in council, I have no conflict with that. This motion is not telling people how to vote. This motion is showing that Nillumbik Shire Council, as a council that collects $62 million worth of rates from Wurundjeri land, is able to have a leadership position in a national debate. And this is very localised because every person in our shire that is of voting age is able to vote on this. I'm not telling them how to vote, but I'm proud to say that I'm voting yes. I'm voting yes for the conversations that I've had with Aboriginal people. I'm voting yes for the education that I've given myself and as an adult over the years, trying to learn more about our country's history. And I don't want to give anybody a history lesson tonight. There's lots of information and ways that people can find out about things. But, you know, one thing that sticks in my mind is that Linda Burney, as the Minister for Indigenous Affairs, was 10 years old when she was given the same constitutional rights as other Australians. I hope that with this upcoming referendum that we're able to give Aboriginal people the same right that we have at a local council, where we have advisory committees. They don't make the council decisions, they inform us, like the Youth Council, the Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee, our Positive Ageing Committee, our Access and Inclusion Committee. This voice to Parliament is going to do a similar function in the federal realm. Aboriginal people have been asking this for decades, and it's about time that we listen to that.
Thank you. All right, I'll now put that motion to the vote. Those in favour? Those against?
Division.
And that is carried. A division has been called. Those in favour?
Public division.
Councillor Perkins, Councillor Eyre, Councillor Payne, Councillor Ramcharan, Councillor Duffy. Those against? Councillor Stockman, Councillor Egan. And that is carried. The next item is the Audit and Risk Committee member appointment, and I will look for a mover.
I'm
Councillor
happy,
Payne.
happy to move the recommendation that Council 1 appoints Jonathan Kaivalidis as an independent member of the Audit and Risk Committee for a 3-year term effective from the 31st of July 2023, and advises Mr Kaivalidis accordingly. 2, notifies the other applicants of Council's decision and thanks them for their application. And 3, reappoints John Watson and Gregory Hollyman as independent members for a 3-year term effective from September 1, 2023, and advises them accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre, Councillor Payne.
Just wanted to reiterate the important work of the Audit and Risk Committee, keeping Nillumbik on the straight and narrow. And as we welcome Jonathan Kaivalidis to the role, I would also like to wish a fond farewell to Chris Eddy, who's been an important member of the committee and done great work. And we look forward to having Jonathan on board and, as I say, keeping this Shire on the straight and narrow. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre?
Yeah, just quickly, I just wanted to say thanks to Chris Eddy for his dedication and commitment to Nillumbik and being such a great committee member with keeping us safe and on track. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is contract report for telecommunications services and hardware, and I will look for a motion.
I
Councillor
can do that,
Eyre.
Mayor. Thank you. It's a bit of a long one. That Council 1 accepts the VTS Business Services Agreement by Telstra and enters into the following contract. Number 2324-005, Telecommunications Services and Hardware for a 3-year term from agreement signing date. 2, authorises the Director of Culture and Performance to finalise and execute the contract documentation. And 3, authorises the Director of Culture and Performance to review and approve adjustments to the telecommunications services via the contracted agreement that are a result of changes of operational requirements throughout the term of the contract.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. So this report recommends entering into a new business service agreement with Telstra for the provision of telecommunication services and hardware. It's a 3-year contract, as says in the actual motion. It's for mobile voice and data services, internet services, and that's really all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll speak just briefly on this. I think the report stops just short of saying that Telstra is the network that works better in more places, but sadly, especially in the rural areas of Nillumbik, that's actually something that's quite important. So if I can just take this opportunity to once again advocate that we probably do need more mobile and internet services in Nillumbik, especially in the rural areas. There are certain areas in my ward where you would be shocked that you're not getting reception, but you're simply not. And it really would be a fantastic thing for our community to have better networking infrastructure installed. Council did do a community survey, I believe last year, where we identified mobile and broadband internet black spots across the Shire and got some really good input from the community, which has informed a strong advocacy position on our end. And I really hope that we can continue that work and get some positive changes made so that more people can have connectivity, which is particularly important in the case of bushfires. All right, I will now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. And the next item is the informal meetings of councillors' records. I will look for a motion. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. The recommendation is that Council, in accordance with item 19 of Council's Governance Rule, Meeting Procedure, receives the informal meetings of councillor records in attachment 1 for the meetings that have been held in this last period of time.
Happy to second, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Egan. Councillor Duffy?
Thank you. I won't go into detail other than to say there was one meeting that's in the papers that I sadly wasn't able to attend, which is the Health and Wellbeing Forum. It's an annual forum for our Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee and others within Council and the Shire that work in the health and wellbeing space. I had the flu and I couldn't attend, so I would have loved to have been there. But everything else is as per the papers, and it's great to see that councillors attend multiple meetings to get a wide range of views and understanding of the business of council.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Egan? Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre?
Councillor Duffy, I was at that Health and Wellbeing Forum, and it was really well done, and we had a really good mix of community and also key stakeholders, so our key health organisations. So it was really, really well done.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I have to agree with that. Any other councillors? All right, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. That is all the officers' reports for tonight. But we do have a notice of rescission for the governance rule, and so I will look for a motion on that one. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that Council rescind the council decision made on 27th of June 2023 that refers to item CM.045/23, seeking adoption of Council's governance rule meeting procedures.
Happy to second, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Seconded, Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins.
Look, first of all tonight I just wish to acknowledge and thank representatives from the Baha'i faith for their work again tonight. Again, these are volunteers that come here and you know, pray for council and for good decisions from councillors. I take it as an honour that these people come to speak on our behalf. I know as I grew up, you would often say to people, say one for me, you know, God bless. We've got a Christian calendar in Nillumbik and in Australia, and for much of the world we celebrate Christmas, we celebrate Easter. Our holidays are based around that. Yes, you know, almost 50% of Nillumbik residents don't have a faith, but I'm pretty sure they still enjoy Easter and Christmas and the way of life in Australia. You know, stark reference when people quote figures at me in terms of census data. No one has an issue on this council with our acknowledgement of country. You know, 0.6% of residents of council, residents of Nillumbik identify as Indigenous. That's nothing to be ashamed of. It's never been considered that we would remove acknowledgement of country. We certainly do know, my time on council, this is my fourth council, there's always been a minority group of councillors who have wanted to get rid of the prayer. You know, they're representing elements of their own community. That's fair enough, but you know, for this council, it has always been a minority group of council who wanted to delete the prayer from the get-go. I brought this rescission motion up tonight primarily because the full council wasn't represented 1 month ago. There were only 6 councillors here, and that gave the mayor, who has been one of the chief instigators for removing the prayer, that gave him the casting vote, and he chose to use that to remove the prayer. So now, 1 month on, very happily welcome back Councillor Richard Stockman, who, you know, if certainly the decision goes awry again and we lose the prayer permanently, I'll be more accepting of it because it is a legitimate decision of council. But I don't think we're going to lose the prayer. I'll say to Councillor Stockman, thank God you're here. We did leave a bit punch-drunk, battered and bruised, I think, after the council meeting. So I'm not wanting to open up old wounds. I think we can get through this business fairly quickly. You know, retain really the status quo in relation to the prayer, continue to welcome diversity and inclusiveness at council meetings, and move on from this. But you know, I'm certainly very thankful and honoured to have people from our community that actually take their time to come to a council meeting, say a prayer for us. It's nothing that makes me feel awkward. It makes some people feel awkward. I can't help that. But it's a contentious issue amongst council. You know, many important decisions are, but I'll respect the majority decision of this council tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. As mentioned in the previous motion for the voice, the current council relies on stats when it suits them. One of the current arguments for removing the prayer from our council meetings was that only 49% something of our residents identify with any sort of religion or belief or any sort of creed. It wasn't just religion, it was having a faith. Therefore, the prayer must be banished forever. But in the case of council stating position on the upcoming referendum on the voice, even if with 90% of the residents telling me this was not our job, as you saw just previously, the stats were not enough to convince the current council that we have the right and the arrogance to tell residents how and what to vote. Getting back to the issue at hand, stats were also mentioned in the last council meeting when the huge number of submission respondents were mentioned. The huge total of 9 people who actually took the time to make submissions to remove the prayer. Nearly all were identical and a cut and paste job, so that was a real lesson in democracy once again. Yes, sure, that was enough respondents to tick the stats box. This council, as Councillor Perkins has already mentioned, has attempted in the past few years to make this an inclusive council, and actually referring to the other council about the prayer. Apparently it wasn't before. Now we see what that definition of that is. It means anyone outside the sphere of influence or who does not agree with him, or indeed who has a different opinion, religion or faith or creed or conviction, for want of any other name. I was brought up in the Anglican Church, quite a shocking history, as anyone in this room knows, but I was not brought up to mock or ridicule people for their beliefs, especially if they were different. In fact, we even have had residents acting in the same deplorable way. As Councillor Perkins said last meeting, councillors don't often get people saying nice things about them, or indeed hoping that we would make wise decisions and wishing us all the best in our deliberations. A small thing, I know, in the scheme of things. The attack on gender of religious gods also that night was something that spoke volumes about inclusion and respect for others and regard for another's point of view. Chauvinistic at best. I actually spoke to Mary during our dinner, and she was telling me that they use he for the want of another term of respect, because they're actually referring to an it, and that's in Mary's particular religious definition. I believe in the true definition of inclusion, where we have a world which includes everyone and does not divide on minorities, and not based on stats or numbers, but one that doesn't segregate or breed racism amongst people. It's pitting religion against atheists. Why can't we just all join together in the spirit of a prayer, if prayer's your thing, which is what this is, or to meditate if that's your thing?
Councillor Egan.
So I won't be, I will be supporting this motion. You know what I mean.
Any other councillors? Councillor Stockman.
I'd just like to say, before our ordinary council meeting, we have a briefing, and then we break for dinner. During that time, we were introduced to our special guest, or tonight's case, guests, and they read out the prayer. As you heard tonight, it's very respectful. It is at the dinner, and also when the prayer is read out. And it takes even less time normally, but there was 2 tonight. I've met many people of faith, not just met them, but they've opened their hearts up to me, both within my ward and the wider Nillumbik. And firsthand, I've seen how much their faith means to them. There are many people that get a positive and beautiful things from their faith, the health and well-being components to many, and sometimes when people have very, very little, they still have their faith. I'll go as far as saying getting rid of the prayer tonight, unfortunately, is one step in getting rid of the freedom of religion.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. How to explain this? A rescission motion is normally raised where we want to come back and make a decision on something because new information has come to hand. I feel that no new information has come to hand at this point, so I won't be able to support the rescission motion. I feel we've been given all the information to make an informed decision. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Councillor Payne?
I won't revisit what we said last month. There's no reason to. I would never question Councillor Egan's stats or her Facebook idea, except that the idea that 10 people can't have an opinion that we should listen to, it doesn't work at a council when 7 councillors are actually making this decision. The new governance rules, we're trying to be inclusive. I think that's important. And in a way, this was a burden that is placed on governance officers having to come up with the different religious groups that we struggle to find on a regular basis. And that's the only reason. It's got nothing to do with respect or disrespect. It's about efficient working of council.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any other councillors? I'll speak to that one briefly as well. And then I'm sure Councillor Perkins will have a right of reply after that. Look, it's never a pleasure for a mayor to use their casting vote, as Councillor Perkins alluded to. It's not something I ever hoped I'd have to do as mayor, but it is part of the role and it's something that you take seriously. I'd dispute the suggestion that I was one of the main instigators of having the prayer removed. I certainly do feel that secular government is important, and I actually think in the interest of freedom of religion and in the interest of inclusion, there needs to be a separation between church and state, or in this case, church and council. And that's why I think while we should respect all religions and accept all religions into our community and support them to practice their religions in our community, the council chamber is not the place for it. That's what informed my vote last time, and that's what informed my casting vote. I do completely agree with Councillor Eyre in terms of the question of whether this is a matter to be rescinded. I think there was plenty of information last time. We haven't been presented with any new information this time, and so it doesn't stack up against the purpose of a rescission motion, which is to rescind a motion when not enough information was provided. And we have no new information tonight, so I don't see why the rescission motion is necessary. I also, a point of frustration for me is the conflation between the debate on the prayer and the debate on an acknowledgement of country. I've had it suggested at least 3 times tonight that it's offensive to remove the prayer if an acknowledgement of country is retained. But I think, an acknowledgement of country is such an incredibly important opportunity for us to show respect to the traditional owners of the land. We have such a strong commitment to working towards the RAP, our Reconciliation Action Plan. We've just passed a motion in relation to the voice, and we need to continue with supporting that connection that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have to country, and that's why we do an acknowledgement of country before we have a council meeting on country. That's the purpose of that acknowledgement. That's why it is so important, and I think it's unfair to conflate that with a prayer, which in my mind has no relevance in the council chamber when we are and must always be a secular government. And I will now pass back to Councillor Perkins for a right of reply.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'll just start with you've either misrepresented or misunderstood the discussion around acknowledgement of country and the prayer. It was purely on the basis of people trying to put to council that we should delete the prayer on the basis of census data. The fact that about 50% of people in Nillumbik are not of faith. We would never consider removing the acknowledgement of country. Certainly there's no councillor in this room, or I think in a future council, that will seek to remove the acknowledgement of country from our meeting agenda. So it's preposterous and mischievous, I think, to suggest such a thing. What we're trying to put across is the notion that stats in terms of census data about, all of a sudden we've now gone down to less than a majority, perhaps 49% of people of Nillumbik who are of faith, and suddenly the submitters that we've all had emails from and heard submissions for, many of them are using that census data to say get rid of the prayer. The notion of getting rid of acknowledgement of country has never been considered by this council. It was certainly put out in a media release that the mayor would have authorised, and I think that was just cover for trying to advertise this notion of getting rid of the prayer. What a mayor is a representative of council. So win, lose or draw, the mayor has to try to find a way to speak on behalf of the council group. And if you know that the majority of your councillors support one position, you leave yourself in a bit of a bind if you use a casting vote to go the opposite way. So, if this vote gets up, the mayor's in an unenviable position, I would say. But we look forward to the mayor speaking on behalf of the council decision to retain the prayer, that if indeed that is how it's going to go, and I certainly hope it does. But I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. All right, I'll now put that to the vote. So those who support the rescission motion. Those against the rescission motion? And that is carried.
Division.
We will have a division. Those in favour? Those against? Oh, sorry, I need to read out. Those in favour? Councillor Stockman, Councillor Egan, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Perkins. Those against? Councillor Eyre, Councillor Payne, Councillor Ramcharan. And that is carried. But that's not the end of it. We have one more motion.
I'll just wait
The
for the
next-
applause from the gallery just to die down a little bit.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. So the next
Well-
item is a notice of motion from Councillor Perkins seeking adoption of Council's governance rules. And so, Councillor Perkins, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, notice of motion is NOM.002/23. Notice of motion seeking adoption of Council's governance rules meeting procedure. Conditional and rescission motion tabled by Councillor Perkins and Councillor Egan in relation to the officers' report CM.045/23, seeking adoption of Council's governance rule meeting procedure being carried. This isn't the motion, sorry. I'll just move the motion. Motion that Council notes that 10 submissions in relation to the draft governance rule meeting procedures were received and that these submissions were considered and submitters were provided with the opportunity to be heard at the Planning and Consultation Committee on 6th of June 2023. Number 2, having considered the written and verbal submissions and pursuant to Section 60 of the Local Government Act 2020, adopts the governance rule meeting procedures as presented to the Council meeting on 27th of June 2023 with the following amendment. A, retain the prayer in the order of business. 3, request that officers review and council processes to allow for multi-faith prayer participation to ensure council remains inclusive and respectful. 4, notes that council's existing governance rule meeting procedure adopted on 25th of August 2020 ceases to apply. 5, requests that officers write to all respondents to the public engagement to express council's gratitude for their contribution and to advise them of council's resolution.
Happy
Thank
to
you,
second
Councillor
the motion,
Perkins.
Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Councillor Egan, once again. You've had a fantastic night. I think really, I'm just thinking about the notice of rescission in terms of its intent. My idea of a notice of rescission is to effectively confirm that the council resolution going forward is actually what all councillors wanted. We're a council of 7. I think that's where we've failed with the previous motion that was put up, acknowledging that it was a contentious issue right from the word go. It was unfortunate that we didn't have Councillor Stockman here at the time. We do have a process in the governance rules that allows a councillor to put up a rescission of motion. I've acted within the rules. I think the Mayor is a bit aggrieved by that, but the governance advice to me was clear. The governance rule is clear in terms of a notice of motion. And there's nothing out of order in terms of what has happened tonight. This motion seeks to close the item, close the business, retain the prayer in the order of business and not make any other change to the officer report or the recommendations as we saw at the last council meeting. So there are some changes to the governance rule, but none that are being made tonight from the report that we saw last month. So it is basically to retain the prayer in the order of business, and for those that feel uncomfortable in the chamber about sitting down quietly for a couple of minutes and letting someone say a prayer, you'll just have to suck it up. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan.
Yeah, I won't go over old ground. The only thing I'm really happy about is that we don't have to cancel Christmas or Easter or give back all those Christmas grants, because that would have been rather awkward. So I'm really pleased about that, and I'm really glad to see Councillor Stockman back amongst us, so we have a full contingent of 7 councils, which makes this a much more democratic process. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. I believe that every councillor is highly supportive of the intent and purpose of the governance rules and the efforts, including engagement, that have led to the current draft. However, the point of contention lies, and as we've heard tonight, in the conclusion of the prayer in our new procedures. The question we face is whether or not to include the prayer. I left our last council meeting feeling disheartened by the nature of the debate. I want to emphasise that this motion is not intended to undermine anyone's faith or criticise the church. Rather, it revolves around the suitability of having a prayer during our council meetings. And I feel really disappointed with the banter that makes a joke of the decisions that we're making tonight. And I've heard it quite often tonight, and I feel really unhappy with that. Of course, we're not going to cancel Christmas. I feel I'm in a quandary. Do I endorse the motion and the governance rules with the prayer or not? Not endorse it around my thoughts of the prayer, but then not be supporting the remainder of the procedure. I'm assuming the outcome of this motion. I feel that because of the way it was voted for the notice of motion. So I have some thoughts that I'm putting forward. I'd like to gain a deeper understanding of the revised motion, which proposes the inclusion of a multi-faith prayer. How can we effectively implement this idea, ensure its inclusivity, accommodating not only Christianity but other faiths? So I'd like to understand what strategies we're going to use to employ this, and will we really be a truly multi-faith approach? I'd also like to understand, in the likely event that a person of faith cannot attend in person, will we look at an inclusive statement that can be read out at our council meeting in place of the prayer, because the one we have currently approved or is not inclusive. And we need to be inclusive and be considerate to all our community members. And just reminding everyone that the Local Government Act in 2020 does not require councils to conduct prayers. It does, however, expect that councils will reflect and be accountable to the communities that they are elected to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Councillor Duffy.
I will. You skipped over me at the last one, so I'll say a few words this time. The governance rules are really important, and this is an important discussion to have. Last council meeting, I made the statement that our community is made up of people of all ages, faiths and non-faiths, but I believe that all residents would agree that truth, justice and equality are principles that we collectively stand up for here in Nillumbik. How we live is very much at the heart of this matter, as it was, in my opinion, with our position on The Voice. You know, people of Nillumbik are people of conviction. The thing that's really important to me with our council meeting procedures is that we come to a decision tonight to move forward so that we can actually get on with the business of governing for the Shire. You know, in my time as council, I've endeavoured to put the community at the heart of my decisions and my actions, and I intend to do that again today. You know, we've talked about the role of councillor, which is the role of a councillor is to make decisions on behalf of the municipality, and the best decisions are made when all councillors can participate. And there's a very important part of this notice of this meeting procedures which attends to that. It's about enabling councillors to attend remotely if they need to attend remotely for whatever reason that might be. So I don't want to hold that up, because that's really important for everybody to be able to be in the room or zoom into the room if need be. To ensure transparency and engagement, you know, we've got questions from the public. That's changing a little bit. We saw tonight there were many questions from people in the gallery that weren't able to be answered because the people weren't here. One of the changes that's coming with the meeting procedures is to enable people's questions to be answered by council regardless of whether they're in the chamber or not. So we're trying to become more inclusive. And you know, some of the suggestions that I've made in terms of the governance rules have been looking at welcome to countries. Why not include a welcome to country smoking ceremony in our meeting procedures? And it's come back to me that this is better off to be in our reconciliation action plan. So council will be looking to have that on an annual basis rather than just one at the beginning of their term. So it is all about inclusion. For me, there's been contact that I've had from people encouraging me to support the prayer and encouraging me to drop the prayer. Looking at the time here, I don't have all the time to be able to say what I'd like to say, but I do notice that in my ward, information's been given to me to say how many people are of a Christian faith and how many people aren't. So for me, making this decision is about inclusivity and for council to be able to acknowledge, that we're here trying to do a good job. So tonight, I do propose to vote to keep the prayer in. I do acknowledge the work of our churches in providing community services and that people of all faiths are able to express that. And I would also like to hope that maybe in the future we can have presentations from other community groups that are not related to churches, but it could be a sports club, it could be
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. If you
a
could
climate
wrap up
action
there.
group, so they can talk about what they do for the community as well.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll speak briefly to that one as well. Look, I will support the motion, to the surprise of some, because overall I think the governance rules are very well written, a vast improvement on what we have currently. And while I don't necessarily support keeping the prayer in there, I support the rest of the document, and I don't want to see it fail. So I will be supporting this motion. I'm not going to, in Councillor Perkins' words, suck it up that the prayer is still there. It's my job as a councillor, and especially as mayor, to accept whatever decision is made by council, and I do so happily, because that is my job, and when a decision is made by all the heads in the room, it's better than a decision made by one. So it's not about sucking it up, it's about honouring the decision that's been made by myself and my colleagues. And there are many times when a person might not be happy with a decision that's made by council. I'm sure all of us have been disappointed in the outcome of votes at some point along the way, and that is fine. But you get it back together, you move on, you come back here next week, and you work productively with the rest of your colleagues and continue to do so, because that is how we operate, and that's how we work best as a team. And I think teamwork in this council is something that we've done very well so far, and I'd hate to see that fall down over such a small issue. Once again, I do agree with Councillor Eyre. It is a shame to see inflammatory and childish comments such as cancelling Christmas and losing Easter. It's not what we're suggesting at all. The argument was about secular government. The argument's been had and presumably decided on, but nobody at any point has suggested that we cancel Christmas. And in fact, I'm very much looking forward to some of the Christmas community grants that I'm encouraging people in my ward to apply for, so we can have some really good fun events at Christmas time. And yes, Councillor Egan, I'm also pleased to see Councillor Stockman back in the chamber. It really is wonderful to have a council of 7 again, and looking forward to what Councillor Stockman can continue to contribute now that he's back. It is very good to have you back, Richard. All right, I will put that to the vote. Nobody spoke against your motion. Councillor Eyre, in my opinion, spoke impartially, not for or against. Councillor Payne hasn't spoken. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. There are no delegates' reports. There is no supplementary and urgent business. There are no confidential reports. And so I close the meeting at 8:20.